Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. And today we're taking a look at something very new. This is the Wave 1 basic class of sorts of the Transformers MixMashers. Um, Now, if you remember some years ago, Hasbro had a line of figures. I think it was like Mix Smashers or Smash. It was something like it was a cross from Transformers, Star Wars, Marvel. That you could these rubbery figures that you could take them apart at the joints, swap the limbs around. They came with extra parts to swap in and out. Well, they're bringing that back as Mix Smashers, and like that original line, Transformers, Marvel, and Star Wars all have it. They're all cross compatible. They're even compatible with those older figures. Now, what I can tell you, because I think I had one or two of them, I know I had like an Iron Man that came with the parts to build on the um, a Hulkbuster armor. Those were like rubbery and soft. This is actually a much heavier plastic. The figures are dense, but I do have to tell you, they all share some similar negatives. Basically, the sculpting, while nice, does limit articulation. The joints can move, the joints can fully bend and stuff, but because of the sculpting, um, they're they're limited as far as they can go. And number two, by the nature of the toys being having their limbs being removable, there's a natural waggle to the figures because the joints just aren't going to be and the connections aren't going to be as tight as they could be. Because of that, you do have instances with like Bumblebee and even Starscream here, where there's a little bit of a lean, even though the joints of the figure are technically straight, and that's because there's that little bit of a gap that'll, leads to the figure um, wanting to lean forward or back. Now, this is what I would say the basic. Let me look on the packaging if they give it a name. I know the deluxes are Optimus Prime and Megatron. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm going to call these the basic class. And basically, what they are, you get a figure with the removable joints and one swappable accessory that's actually meant to go with another figure in the line. For example, Bumblebee comes with a saw that's meant to go with Starscream. Starscream comes with a mace that, well, is clearly obvious for Optimus Primal. And then Optimus Primal comes with something that looks like a sword or blaster with a flame effect that's meant to go with Bumblebee. So really, I mean, if you're wanting to experience this, you can't just buy one figure. You want to buy at least two, but then you want to make sure you get the ones that's like share swappable bits. But unfortunately, it's like if you buy Bumblebee and then you buy Starscream, while you can give Starscream its weapon, that the mace is you're missing out on that blaster from Bumblebee. But that's enough for an intro. We'll pause, and then we will come back and we'll take a closer look at Bumblebee. And here's Bumblebee. Now, I'm going to say that Bumblebee is the worst of this first wave. Um, Really, a lot of my issues come from the sculpting. This is basically its evergreen design brought down to a more simplified aesthetic. Um, it really affects the articulation the most. Like, if you try to bend the knee any further, the joint will just come off. Um, Same thing with the lateral movement here. But we'll actually see with Starscream that's even worse. But, that comes off. This comes off. Separates there, separates there. Oh, and the other thing is, you can't bring the legs in completely straight. They're always going to be in that A stance. Um, the shoulder separates at the bicep. There's no bicep swivel. This is all one molded piece. The torso is all one central core. And I mean, they do go together nicely, but as you can see, like, there are ratchet joints or faux ratchets, but as we can see here in the head, this back piece is removable as well. I'm just going to rotate that down. I have an issue with the head where it just can't look straight. And if we come in and take a look, you might be able to see the little detents. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Uh, the detents. It's just there's a little bit of a gap between them. This is what happens with faux ratchets, and there might just not be enough. And because of that, it does affect the head um, not being able to face forward. And here's the bend at the elbow, and it's basically locked uh, by the shoulder sculpt. You do see ports here. That's if you want to peg things on. And now, let's just go ahead and, you see the accessory here, the saw blade. Um, let's just go ahead and bring in Starscream. Now, Starscream, um, unfortunately, does suffer from a lot of the same issues in terms of the the less than 90-degree movement at the elbow. There's no, by the way, outward shoulder movement. You can only go forward and back. Like Bumblebee, it does have the extra piece for the wings. But what's worse than Bumblebee is, let's see if I can move the arms out of the way here. The hip skirt. If you look, that whole solid piece basically negates any outward leg movement. So, it comes apart, the figure comes apart the same way. The head, you do have a great range of movement in terms of up and down with the head, side to side. Um, Now, to pop the arm off, we just do it like that. I think this little bit is meant to go down because if you put it upward, that negates all the elbow movement. And on Starscream, you do get a little bit more elbow bend with it on than you would get from Bumblebee. Let me just, as you can see, because of that waggle, the figures do want to fall over. Um, so, it's not much, but Starscream does give you a little bit more of a bend. And just for the sake of showing, yeah, you can switch the arms. And again, the Bumblebee arm will have a little bit more movement because it doesn't have that shoulder piece. But that's kind of cool and stuff, and I'm sure that's good, like a fun play pattern. But I really was a little disappointed by the limits of the sculpt and the articulation. And you are seeing that when I try to put the joints on, how sometimes the pressure will push backwards. So let's just move Bumblebee out of the way now. And, here's Starscream. And this, of course, again, it's evergreen design, obviously drawing more from the movie aesthetic because of the inclusion of the saw blade. Blade doesn't spin at all. But there's no null raise. Now, of course, you can see here on the shoulders, there's really no place for the null raise to peg in, either on the shoulder or the bicep. That's kind of disappointing. You could do it in the forearm, but and there's even a hole there on the saw blade. But you know, bending the elbow, bending the knee. There's no ankle articulation, and again, because of the nature. Starscream's legs come a little come together a little bit closer, but you still have that permanent base stance. Now, Starscream, as I said, came with this very heavy, very solid mace for Optimus Primal. And let me just say, Optimus Primal is probably the best figure of the wave, and actually comes with quite a bit of accessories besides this arm cannon for Bumblebee, which, let's just quickly bring Bumblebee back in. You can see goes on very nicely. It's a solid translucent plastic. But like some of the play stuff, like there's no waist swivel. You're kind of like, what is he gonna do with it? And one thing I also noticed is, if you're taking the arm off, there's really no place to store it. But that is nice to have with Bumblebee. Now, Primal. Like I said, this is probably the best figure of the wave. Well, at least of the simplified figures. First of all, as you can see, the character comes with its two scimitars. And what's really cool about these is they can store on the back. But one little negative, as you can probably tell right here, there is already some deep stressing. That's how the scimitar. That's from how the scimitars come packaged. There's a lot of pressure bending upward on them. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's something else. Now you have this back panel, which very quickly this is removable. So you have the traditional connector point, but you also have molded in thrusters. Would have been nice to have some effects for them, but can't have too much. But the scimitars do store on the back. So you do have weapon storage in that regard. And you have the head movement, the full articulation like we said. Again, like with Bumblebee and Starscream, where you do have the forward leg movement because of the sculpting of the butt panel. You can't really go back, but it does go out laterally, the best of the bunch. Slight simple knee bend. You would think there would be some sort of ankle because of how all this is sculpted in, but no, nothing like that. And simple 90 degrees. Now, something else you probably noticed from the scimitar is, yes, you can combine them together. So it kind of makes sense when you figure that, hey, this whole line is based on combining. So you can do something like that and have the combined scimitar, which I think was shown in Rise of the Beast. It's very nice to see that after the success of the Rise of the Beast toy line, which Hasbro said made them money, they are open now to have Optimus Primal featured in more of the lines. But of course, let's not forget the mace. Now, the mace, unfortunately, is very oddly sculpted. As you can see, it does have the face molded in. So, I mean, you're putting it that way. It's kind of like the face is looking up at like Optimus Primal, like, I know what you do. Stop it! Stop talking to me. You're not a good leader. You can have stuff like that. I mean, but at least with the nature of how the arms are designed, you can rotate it out to the side there. It actually kind of, because there is the hole, maybe it's actually meant to go this way, but then you do lose a little bit of the elbow bend if you do it like that. So I don't know, but out of the bunch, Primal is the best in terms because of all the accessories, with all of the the articulation works the best. But I mean that's really not saying much. So yeah, I guess really we looked at all three of them. So really not much more to say. So we'll pause and we'll come back with my final thoughts. So here's a little action scene. It's two Autobots, well, one Autobot, one Maximal against Starscream. Um, yeah, I guess this is really the most play you're going to get out of it. I mean, they're fun, but I'll be honest with you, I do plan on getting Optimus Prime and Megatron. And let me just say, I got these off of Amazon. Amazon is the only place that has the basic and the deluxe figures listed in one spot. Here's the problem. They have Megatron. Prime is listed like you can pay that Prime is listed as you'll pay for it, but it won't come until for like another week to a week and a half. And I've been waiting to order Prime and Megatron together because it doesn't pay to get one without the other. Target.com, Walmart.com only have the basic figures in stock. So just so you know. So with all this being said, overall, I'm kind of mixed on the line. It's as I said earlier in the review, it doesn't pay to get one figure. If you're gonna get one, I would recommend Optimus Primal. But with that being said, I can't really recommend a second one because of just how limited they are. Without having them in hand, I'm kind of hesitant to say stick with the deluxes because deluxes come with a lot more accessories out of the packaging, so you can experience the mixing play pattern without having another figure, but I don't know the quality of the hand feel. I mean, these are very heavy. There is a weight to them. There's a heft to them. The plastic is solid and not rubbery. But I don't know. I think if they do like a character I'm into, I'll pick it up. Um, but I think in term as of right now, I'm good with what's here. And for about $12, I think they could have been a little bit more, which is what they're retailing for. So if you see Optimus Primal, pick it up because I think it's an okay um, Optimus Primal figure that looks like the original toy, and I think has about the same articulation as the red figure, if you remember those. In fact, I think you might enjoy this a little bit more than the red figure. So it's a sort of recommendation, not really. I think it's if you know what you're getting into, and hopefully I've given you enough here to figure it out, you can make your own decision. But that's about it for the review. If you like this review, like, comment, and subscribe. Well, I appreciate the views. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions help me communicate with the algorithm so YouTube can promote the channel, hold it up to be idolized and what have you. But I also have a Patreon. That's the ultimate sign of support. It's www.patreon.com/chuckdog1999. All I ask for is $1 a month, $12 a year. No thrills, no tears, no special rewards. All you're doing is helping me help you to help me help you bring figures like this to you, as well as keeping up the infrastructure of the channel. But as I always say, if you can't afford the $1 a month or $12 a year, your views are more than thanks enough. And I really do mean that. Patreon is just a bonus on top of everything else. You guys have always been have been supporting me for a very long time, and I do appreciate it. So, really, that's about it for the review. Once again, this is your old pal Chuck for Bumblebee, Optimus Primal, and Starscream, the MixMashers Wave 1. We will see you next time.